Welcome to Beauty and the Biz. Discover how to grow your practice with effective cosmetic patient attraction, conversion, and retention advice from author, speaker, trainer, and cosmetic practice business and marketing coach, Catherine Maley, MBA.
Hello and welcome to Beauty and the Biz, where we talk about the marketing and business side of plastic surgery practices. I'm your host, Catherine Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying, as well as consultant to plastic surgeons to get them more patients and more profits. Now, today's episode is very exciting, and it's called COVID-19 Update with Dr. Grant Stevens. And he really needs no introduction, but just in case you've been living under a rock, let me just tell you a bit about him. Dr. Grant Stevens is a board-certified plastic surgeon, and he's the founder and medical director of Marina Plastic Surgery and the Institute, a medical spa in Marina del Rey, California, which is gorgeous. And he's also the medical director of Orange Twist Brands, offering multi-location, non-invasive, and minimally invasive aesthetic treatment. Now, he's also the chairman of the USC Marina Aesthetic Surgery Fellowship and the director of the USC Division of Aesthetic Surgery. Now, Dr. Stevens has won tons of top doc awards. He's written over 60 articles and chapters on aesthetic plastic surgery, and he's an active member at Marina del Rey Hospital, where he's chairman of the liposuction committee and the medical director of the breast center. Now, he's also on staff at St. John's Medical Center, the Marina Outpatient Surgery Center in USC. Now, Dr. Stevens is well known for his active participation in many medical societies, and he's a recent past president of the American Society of Aesthetic Plastic Surgery, otherwise well known as ASAPS. He speaks on clinical topics as well as business and marketing, the aesthetic practice topics, and that's where we have shared the podium the most. And he stands out over all the other physician speakers for his forward-thinking growth mindset. Now, he's been interviewed by all of the major media and PR outlets, and he's appeared on more than 125 TV programs, such as Extra, CNN, and 60 Minutes. So welcome, Dr. Stevens, to Beauty and the Biz. I am thrilled to be interviewing you.
Oh, thank you so much, Catherine. I only regret my mother wasn't listening.
Right.
It's an absolute pleasure to have a chance to chat with you and your listeners. Thank you very much.
Well, you know what they say, there's always an opportunity in every challenge. And this was the one time I could catch you because you are so gosh darn busy. So I'm thrilled to have this time with you and for you to share your opinion and your insights on what's going on out there. So can we just start with, give us an update on COVID-19 in Southern California?
Well, Catherine, my suspicion is it's probably not a whole lot different than most of the other areas where your listeners are located. I will tell you that we are not seeing patients or doing elective procedures. Recently, we're seeing more masks being worn. Up until now, we didn't see as many. I noticed over the last day, I've seen a lot of more masks being worn. The streets are pretty desolate. People are still walking about and so forth, but keeping a distance from one another. The restaurants here are closed. There are takeout and that sort of thing, and essential services, as the president and the governor have said, we can still be open for essential services.
All right. So, by the way, for your particular practice, how much of it was medical versus cosmetic?
So my main practice is Marina Plastic Surgery and the Marina Med Spa, or the Institute. And that practice is in Marina del Rey, and we just started our 33rd year. It's hard for me to imagine. And it's 100% aesthetic or elective surgery, with the exception that if somebody gets hurt, when I sew up lacerations, I help family members of my patients with various trauma that they've asked for. In fact, I sewed up a little kid just the other day during this lockdown. But primarily it's an aesthetic plastic surgery practice, and I am including breast reduction there, even though some consider that reconstructive. Now, my other practice is Orange Twist that you mentioned. I have the Orange Twist centers, the retail centers around, California, but also Texas, Nevada, Washington, and so forth. Those are retail centers, and they're entirely non-surgical aesthetic medicine.
So you're almost 100% shut down, right?
We are 100% shut down. In terms of revenue production, we are 100% shut down. There are things we're doing to compensate for that, and hopefully I can share some of those ideas with you, because a lot of my colleagues and residents and fellows and people I've trained and over the years are calling and asking for suggestions on how to maintain revenue and minimize costs, and that's what we've been trying to help people with and to do.
Well, have at it. Yeah, that's what we're here for. Any insights you have to help surgeons get through this insane time?
Well, one of the things, and again, in no particular order here, but as we go through this, one of the things that I have had over the years is a loyalty card program. We've had this for years, and we've had 3 different levels of loyalty cards when it's a prepaid card, and that's worked out well for people that didn't want to do subscription, and I'll touch on subscription in a minute. And these loyalty cards, the people are rewarded according to how much they spend. So they can buy a $1,000 card, a $3,000 card, or a $5,000 card. And with this prepayment, then they receive back certain discounts and certain prizes, if you will, or gifts. Now, we run a pretty large balance on that, and I got to thinking during this COVID period, well, that would be another way, a shot in the arm, if I really marketed that. So I did. I worked with Max at Influx, who does my websites, and we just extended what we already do, and we offered some more bonuses, including an additional 10% off if they spent their loyalty card in the first 60 days once we're back in business, once the moratorium's lifted and we're actually seeing patients. So hopefully that will jumpstart our practice. Once we can start seeing patients, the patients will enjoy an additional 10% off. The staff will be busier, and I can bring the staff back sooner. And in the meantime, they'll be paying the money now that I can use to help pay my staff and keep the doors open while we're waiting to reopen.
And they had already paid this up front, correct?
Correct. And they've been doing that. Historically, we've run a large 6-figure to sometimes 7-figure balance on that. And so now what we're doing is we're trying to jump that. I want to double that if I can. And we're incentivizing people to help now and then enjoy the discounts later.
Gotcha. I remember, though, you used to have a program that was pretty comprehensive and they paid monthly. Have you noticed the difference between prepaid versus a monthly?
Yeah. So it's really interesting. Some consumers prefer monthly payments or a subscription method, like we all do with Netflix and our car payments and various things that we're used to. It actually, the average per patient, when I did a study on this, has 6 different subscriptions that they're paying on a monthly basis. And so we started this 3 or 4 years ago with Hint MD, and we started our club, our Marina Club, and we have hundreds of people, probably 600 by now, thereabouts, on our subscription program where they get a monthly charge on their credit card, and then they come in according to whatever their schedule is, and that can change, and their monthly amount can change depending on how much they consume. And some people love to budget it that way. Others want to just, if they get an infusion of cash, they just want to pay for a loyalty card. It's not one size fits all. They're different people. Now, speaking of the subscriptions, a lot of people who can't come in on their appointed time for their Botox or their filler or whatever it is, let's say the last 3 or 4 weeks, and the next 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, whatever it's going to be, they're concerned about their subscription. They don't want to pay a subscription for something they're not getting, and I completely understand that. And with that in mind, we've just put everybody on a hold. We just turn the subscription program temporarily off, so everybody gets a hall pass. They won't get charged. Then once we're up and running again, the subscription will just kick back on. The people that want to go off the subscription are disincentivized, if you will, because then they have to pay retail and make up for whatever it is that they haven't, what the advantages they enjoyed by being on subscription. Because the cool thing about subscription also is not only can they budget, but they get discounts and they get different gifts and so forth. And I think you're going to see many more practices going on a subscription approach to aesthetic medicine, aesthetic services.
Oh, for sure. So I know you don't have a crystal ball, but how long do you think this is going to go on? Do you have any idea?
Oh, boy. Well, I agree. I don't have a crystal ball. I'll tell you what I'm doing, besides praying. I am now booking for my non-surgical services. We're booking in May. Now, I'm an optimist. I have to confess, I am an optimist. The glass is always 90% full when I look at it. So that my bias is I am an absolute natural-born optimist. So I have no problem, and I'm telling the patients, let's schedule everything in May, and then if we have to push it out further, we will. And likewise, I've been saying if we possibly could go back sooner, we'll call everyone up because we have many, many people on the books just dying to come in and get their services because everything's been put on hold.
I wonder, a lot of us who are very used to aesthetic rejuvenation, we're way off kilter. And I know you've seen the Instagram cartoons where, women get their nails done, their eyebrows done, their Botox, their fillers. I mean, some of us are jonesing right now. So
yeah, absolutely. I'm taking calls from patients. I'm doing cyber consults and virtual consults and so forth. And yesterday I had 2 emergency Botox calls, which cracked me up, and another emergency home peel call. And when I say emergency, I'm just kidding. But We're both long-standing patients. We have this concept that's on all over our website and all over. I've presented for years. You've heard me talk about patients for life. And so I've had the wonderful good fortune of having patients for over 30 years and some of their children and so forth. And I'm sort of the family doctor. And it's so hilarious that they call and they're getting me. I'm answering my own phone.
Oh.
I'm answering as Marina Plastic Surgery. If it rings through to my cell phone, I have 2 or 3 staff that are taking calls. But when they're tied up, I take the calls. And so yesterday I was fielding calls from patients saying, Marina Plastic Surgery, how may I help you? This is Dr. Grant Stevens. And they never heard me answer the phone.
For sure.
So it's a terrible time. There's no question. But there's a lot of good things that are coming out of it.
I know there will be. I'm just not sure we're ready to see them yet because it's still so raw. I know I'm in my 3rd week of shelter in place, and it's a real mind bend when you're a very active, productive person, and now you're sitting still. Wow. I got to tell you, I've been meditating lately because I don't know what else to do. Work and meditate.
Yeah, absolutely. And home yoga and home workouts. And right. I hear you. I'm a type A like you, and I can't sit still. So it's a challenge for me.
Well, you have a pretty nice backyard, isn't it?
And I do sneak out at night and take my dog for a walk and wear my mask.
Okay. I don't even have a mask. I've got to go get one. So, you've been through several recessions like I have. Like, you've been through 2 of them, and I'm sure you've been through a lot more. Well, I'm sure you've been through many, many challenges, but I'm sure this is the biggest one. But how do you think this is different than any of the other challenges plastic surgeons have had? Because we both lived through both of those recessions, and those were tough. But what about this one?
Yeah. Well, this is also a hybrid. It's not just a recession. It's also a little bit like 9/11 in that it was a bomb that dropped on us. Some of the pure recessions, they start a little less abruptly. It's a little more insidious, and you start seeing a drop-off, and then you hit this crescendo, and then they drop off. But there are some things you can do to prepare. I didn't see this coming. I don't think there are many people who did. And this feels a lot like the consumers after 9/11. And I say that actually positively when you hear my conclusion of that. But the problem is then the financial problem with the recession. I think like 9/11, we're going to see a ton of interest in patients. The moment the doors are open, I think we're going to be flooded with patients like we were after 9/11. I think people are going to want to reward themselves. They're tired of being locked up. They're tired of their roots and their wrinkles and all the different things. They're going to come in for non-invasives big time, and I think they're going to reward themselves with surgery. Now, here's the only caveat. If they have no money, then because of the recession, then we have a problem. And clearly we have problems. And so if we don't have that horsepower, that financial horsepower, then as much as they want to do it, they still may not be able to. So that's going to be the offset in my mind. I think the affluent patients will be all right that have enough money in the bank. And I think that's what we'll see happening. And hopefully we can turn around this crazy unemployment and get the cash flow going again. And with this loan stimulus package, hopefully people will be able to keep their businesses and thus keep their employees, and everyone will be employed and all the rest. So it's hard to say, but I remain optimistic that we're going to have a huge influx of patients in the aesthetics business as soon as this is over.
Well, I think it'll be helpful if you as a practice, and I know you do this, you actually attract a more affluent patient, but there are definitely realities about social economic groups. And if you are catering to, the service industry or the certain groups, you are in very big trouble. I think the credit's going to dry up for a while. And so if you don't have the money, I don't even think you can borrow the money. So that'll be interesting to watch how that all pans out. But I think you're right about the non-invasive. I think we can all jump right back into that again. I'm not sure about the surgery. I don't know, but my guess would be non-surgical would be as popular as ever.
And that's what we saw in the last recession. As you recall, we saw such a surge in the non-surgicals, and we've never really recovered entirely on the surgical side since the 2008, 2009 period of time. I mean, we've grown, but it's been single-digit growth and not this incredible double, in some cases triple-digit. The non-surgicals have far outstripped the surgicals in terms of recovery.
Then let me ask you this, because it just seems to me, this is like good old supply and demand. If this comes back and everybody still wants non-surgical, so the demand is still there, albeit less because they won't be able to afford it as much as before, but the supply will be even greater. So that's going to force a price war, I think. What are your feelings on that?
Well, we've seen that in the past, certainly. As the supply is growing, we're seeing a lot of price pressure, downward price pressure, even before this period of time. So using your argument, I think you have a very good point. However, there are different types of consumers, and there are the sophisticated consumers that believe you get what you pay for. And when you see advertisements for $9 Botox, you're not getting the same product. You're getting diluted Botox. You can't even inject it for $9. So I think the mills will probably still continue. Now, on the other hand, though, this is going to put such pressure on a lot of those practices that were only competing on the basis of price that I think you may be surprised, and you may see that the supply, to use your supply side, your supply demand argument or the discussion, you may see the supply go down because this may wash out a lot of the wannabes and a lot of the people that were just functioning on price alone. And that's what I expect to happen. I think a lot of the small med spas that were dabbling this are going to be out of business.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And it also depends on how long we have to go, right? I mean, if we're doing this 6 months from now, a lot of practices will be over.
Well, you know what I can see happening then? The surgeons will be saying, well, then heck, I'll do my own injectable, you know?
Absolutely.
I can see that coming. And then I think, oh dear, now then what happens, you know?
Yeah. I think we're already seeing some of that, Catherine. I've been seeing that. I have a lot of docs who've been calling me about getting certified and trained more in fillers as opposed to neurotoxins and all. I have 2 Allergan certified instructors, and I've had doctors talk to me about getting up to speed on specifically fillers. And I've thought about it. And I've just done surgery. I don't do the non-surgicals to speak of. I do a little bit of the lasers, but not much. And I've actually thought about that.
You think you would? You think you'll do injectables?
Yeah, I thought about doing injectables myself.
Huh.
So who knows when we're coming back? If we come back and there's no surgery to do, well, what's to stop me from just providing the injectables? And I think that's going to be a common phenomenon you're going to see.
I agree. So regarding your own practice, where did you end up with, you have quite a bit of staff. You know, you have quite a big operation there. So how are you handling who's coming, who's going? How are you going to handle all that?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. So we had to put a number of people on furlough, but while we did that, we maintained all their health benefits, all the various other benefits, their life insurance, their dental, the other benefits we had, and they all have a pretty handsome PTO, and so they're using their PTO. We just did payroll on Monday, and all the people that were furloughed had a chance to apply for unemployment, and we paid them their PTO, so their vacation and sick accordingly, such that they could have full paychecks. We did keep a group of people to help me with the phones and the emails and the texts and just the logistics of keeping the OR up and running, taking deliveries and such on a little bit limited hourly basis. Then this whole package came through, or is coming through, this loan package, and I'm hoping we could apply and receive that such that I can bring my staff back at least for those 2 months they're talking about, the 8 weeks.
Right.
I was just on the phone before this call with my banker at Chase, and that's where applications will be going. I'm really hoping that we can take that infusion of cash and maintain our employees. That's what it's intended for, at least from my perspective. That's what I'm trying to do.
They have to, because there will be such a domino effect if somebody doesn't do something like now. So, yeah, I hear you on that. What are you going to do about the surgery, though? Because I know you work out of hospitals and a surgery center, and I think they're going to be slow to bringing back elective surgeries. Where are you at?
Yep. So in my particular case, I own my own surgery center. So, and I don't use the hospital except on emergencies or isolated things. So for me personally, the moment we're able to be up and running, I'm going to be up and running. And I have a full surgery schedule already lined up. So I have people already on the books for May, June, July, August, September. Now, we pushed all the April into May and June. But we'll be up and running. The moment they give us the green light, we're starting surgery. So now with the hospitals, it's going to be a little tougher for sure. And I think we're still going to have the social distancing, and we're not going to have the same number of people in waiting areas or reception areas. I think we're going to have to, we won't do as many cases per day, I don't think. We certainly won't have all the family members sitting there. We'll have to change our behavior, I'm sure.
You have always been a super great marketer, and but you make it look very easy. And I know you put money and effort into that. You put both into that, money and effort. Are you still doing that, or what's your plan now for marketing your practice?
Well, I will tell you that, as you know, Catherine, I'm somewhat of a contrarian historically. And I've talked about this, and back in the recession I talked about this. If you look at the Depression, the Great Depression, and you look at Kellogg's and Post, both makers of cereals, one doubled down their marketing, the other one did not. They cut back their marketing, and the one has never caught the other. And I will tell you that the moment this started, I doubled down my marketing. So all of my stuff I'm doing it more, and I'm cutting deals. So there's so many reasons to do it. Number one, people are confined to their home. The website traffic is up, not down. The various other media, it's up, not down. So television, radio, people are bored and they're watching television. So as contrarian as it may sound in this midst of this terrible economic downturn, I will be candid with you. I've turned up my marketing.
Okay. And are you doing all facets? I know you do billboards, because every time I go to LA, I see your billboards for CoolSculpting, which are terrific.
I'm not doing, I'm not doing any billboards right now for CoolSculpting. Okay. But that has nothing to do with COVID. Okay. I'd already turned that down. It had sort of run its own life, and we did great with it, but we're not doing it right now. And periodically I'll do ESPN radio for various things, especially CoolSculpting and Cool Tone. We have turned that off, although I spoke to them last week, and I'm probably turning that back on. Okay. The Randy Alvarez stuff that we do on television and on cable, we've turned up significantly. And our phones are ringing because of it. I'll be honest with you, it's working.
Huh. That's great.
Now, if we're scheduling for May and it turns out it's going to be September, then I'm going to look pretty silly. But again, I'm stuck with that optimism problem.
I also don't think you care what other people think about you, and I think that's such an asset to have when you stand out in a marketplace where your peers can shoot you down. It's a tough crowd because there's a lot of ego involved. I love that you just do it anyway. Yeah,
people ask me about that. I always say, these critics, they don't pay my rent. Last time I checked, they're not paying my daughter's tuition. And so until that day comes where they're paying my overhead and paying my family expenses, I really don't care what they think, to tell you the truth. I think we should be ethical at all times. And I think that anything I've produced, I would argue, it has been ethical. I mean, I'm the past president of the Aesthetic Society. There have been people that didn't like my approach. I get that. But I've never done anything false or deceptive or unethical. I know it makes some people uncomfortable, and I'm sorry that it does, but I believe you need to tell people your story and tell people if you have a product or a good or a service, you have the responsibility to let the public know. And we have more experience doing, let's say, CoolSculpting than any other practice in the world. Mm-hmm. And we have more machines than any practice in the world. And so I can treat 4 cycles at once. We've done the FDA studies. People come in. We have competitive pricing. It's very quick because we do 4 cycles in 35 minutes. So we can do 8 cycles in just slightly over an hour. And someone gets in, gets out, and done. And they have quality, 5 different CoolSculptresses. We've done over 60,000 CoolSculpting treatments.
Holy cow.
So I don't have any problem with the fact that we're, talking to people about that. Now with Cool Tone, the same thing. So, yep. I would encourage people that are considering what to do now. They lower their expenses everywhere they can possibly, but not on marketing. If they do that, it's going to be a slower return back.
So do you, as in PPC, you're still doing that? Google AdWords?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Sure am. And actually, it's cheaper.
It's supposed to be cheaper. It better be. It better be. When you do advertising, are you picking 1 or 2 procedures, or what's your game plan for marketing? Are you marketing the practice, the med spa?
Yeah. So we don't do one thing. So I have quarterly goals that we set, and I decide I'm going to go after this particular procedure or this market. The public gets tired of the same old. So we change. And I'm primarily marketing the procedures and the body parts and the actual technologies. I'm not doing a lot of brand marketing, for the Dr. Grant Stevens brand. I think the branding there is probably enough. And we also have multiple providers. So I'm going after, beautiful lips all year long, $99 a month. That's a simple subscription program that we ran at the universities, and the millennials went crazy over it. Millennials don't start with Botox or neurotoxins; they start with fillers, and they're starting two places, in their lips, number one, and in their jawline, number two. And once we got a handle on that, and I started this $99 a month program, which is Juvederm in January and Juvederm in July, every 6 months, and $99 a month for beautiful lips all year long. We had the 20 and 30-year-olds beating down the door thanks to HintMD and subscription. And that's something if your listeners were not doing that, I would encourage them to do that. And I'm happy to explain it to them. It's simple. Just put them on a budget.
You think the 20-year-olds are still going to have money when we get back?
They're going to have $99 a month.
Okay.
Yep.
And then what about, because it's very generational now. I know you also do facelifts and BBLs. And are you going to change your strategies at all? Like when this is over?
Yeah, I'm going to combine services. When I do the facial rejuvenation, I'm going to be pushing the icing on the cake and actually throwing in as a value add, say the Cyton Halo or the BBL and the other non-invasives as a perk for doing the surgery. I'm not going to discount surgery. I don't believe in discounting surgery, but heaping other services on top of it is a way to reward good behavior without eroding the price. So I think that's what we're going to be seeing.
The patient will get a better result too.
Yes.
Long time ago, I used to do a very simple marketing message for my clients. I would say 1 + 2 = 10. And we would give the patient Botox and filler and then a free IPL. So they got they just got a wow result. They were happy that something was free because I still got to use the word free.
Yeah.
And they got to partake in all three things, Botox, filler, and lasers. So now they're just more apt to become a happy patient who returns again and again when they now know what's available to them.
I love that, Catherine. And those are sorts of things I think that will really resonate when people get back into the swing of things.
Which will be, we don't know it.
What's your crystal ball say?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't watch the news because it does give me anxiety, and I'm not easily miffed, but this has got me nervous because it's not a recession. It's an event that's going to become something else. So it's an event that then attacks our credit, that then attacks our economy, that then, there's just a wave to this thing. So, but you know what? Today I was thinking, even if it's 6 months, it's 6 months out of our lives is nothing. It's a blip. So I'm looking at it that way because we can still come back. It's going to be painful or more painful to some than others, but we can handle 6 months, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Hope.
Well, from your lips to God's ears, I hope you're right, and I believe you're right.
Okay, well then, there we go. You know what? I want to talk about your entrepreneurial growth mindset that you've already mentioned. And I don't think you know this, but once we were at ASAPS and we were sharing the podium, and let's talk about CoolSculpting, because there was a man in the audience, a surgeon, and he was complaining that everybody and his brother has a CoolSculpting machine. And then the audience was jumping on. Yeah, everybody has a CoolSculpting machine. And you, very relaxed, in your relaxed way, says, guys, so far, we're only attracting 3% of the population who needs CoolSculpting. Relax. There's plenty for everybody. And I just thought that was so forward-thinking and entrepreneurial of you. How did you get like that?
Well, I've always worked. I've always been an entrepreneur. And it's not that tough. There's a lot of fat people out there. And I remember I used to say, hey, raise your hand if you don't have an inch of fat you'd like to get rid of. You've probably heard me say that. And rarely does a hand go up, and I'll say, okay, now there's the audience right there. I've said this repeatedly. If people want to open CoolSculpting centers across the hall from me, it doesn't bother me in the slightest because it'll just attract more people. It's not a coincidence that if you go over by Disneyland, when I was a kid, I worked at McDonald's, and right next door McDonald's was Kentucky Fried Chicken, and right across the street was H. Salt Esquire fish and chips. Now, the families would pull in. It was a fast food paradise, and these kids would pop out of these station wagons and run to these various places, and I looked at that and thought, that's interesting. And that's the same way with aesthetic services. If you build it, they'll come, as long as you take care of them and you give them value. So I think the fact that there's in this case, a lot of CoolSculpting machines, that doesn't bother me in the slightest. Not in the slightest.
You also have that patient for life mentality, and I struggle with that. Most surgeons they don't want to, but they can't help but get focused on, I just want the surgery. I just want the surgery. How do you explain to them that this is a game for the long run? And
yeah. Catherine, that's something you and I have talked about before, and we've done it from the podium. I want to be all things beauty to my patients. It is far, far easier to keep a patient in your practice or a client in your office. It doesn't matter if you're a dry cleaner or a restaurant or a clothing store. It's a lot cheaper to keep the existing customer base coming back to see you. And the way to do that is to be more comprehensive and fair and take care of these people from cradle to grave. That's where I came up with this whole Patients for Life. So I don't want to be the guy that just does facelifts or breast dogs or lipo or tummy tucks or mommy makeovers and so forth. I'd rather be the guy who provides all things aesthetic or all things beauty for you for the next 30 years. And that will then include the stages of everyone's life and includes non-surgicals and surgicals. And over the last 15 years, the non-surgicals have so outstripped the surgicals. And this is where some of the plastic surgeons were slow on the draw here. Thankfully, most of them are in it now. And that keeps the patient in the practice, too, because if you're providing something on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, they're coming in and seeing you, see how you're doing, you're talking to the patient, and they'll come in, and a patient for life will have an average of 3 surgeries over a 22-year period. We've done the research on this. I have hard data to show this, and the average patient over that period of time is worth between $80,000 and $120,000. That's their value, their lifetime value. There are the outliers that are worth more, and then the outliers that are worth less, but that's what we found in general. And you do that by providing these non-surgical procedures and encouraging people to return, and that's where subscription comes in great. It's a perfect reason to do subscription services because they come back in.
I would be one of those outliers on the more expensive side. Yeah, I partake quite
Me too.
In this world. Love this world. Yeah, I've seen you on Instagram. You've had some stuff done too, huh?
Absolutely.
So what do you have any other suggestions for surgeons to not panic but plan? What should they be doing right now while people are sitting still? I just think it's time to grow and learn, like refine things, sharpen your saw. What would you want them, what should they be doing right now other than?
Well, we've talked on a number of things, certainly budgeting and planning. And the first thing, to sit down and do a 13-week plan, do a firm financial analysis. This is going to take some thought and some planning. Applying for the federal assistance, 100% essential. Getting rid of the fluff, the things that you don't need, and minimizing your expenses, and negotiating with people, negotiating with your landlord, negotiating with any vendor that might be negotiable. Now, a number of the companies are giving extended terms. I saw just the other day that Allergan was extending their terms. Instead of 90 days, it went to 150 days. That's a wonderful thing. So now they don't have to pay on that, and it's entrance-free. A number of the corporate partners for plastic surgeons and aesthetic plastic surgeons are helping, trying to help wherever they can. I think we're going to see more of that too, actually.
I think we have to. If we don't all work together on this, we all go up, or we all implode. So.
Well, you're right. I completely agree with you, Catherine.
So, another note, I know that you're getting married, and we haven't getting married, by the way.
You're so sweet. We haven't set a date. Erin and I have not set a date. We're engaged, and we're happy the way it is, and we were thinking sometime in 2021, but the world is a little bit changed, and so we're not really sure right now.
Well, it always seemed to me, everybody, like the engagement period, I've never been married, but it seems to me I could handle being engaged for a long time. That seems like a lot of fun, so why not? I would draw that out as long as you could. Just my opinion.
Well, that's pretty much what we're doing. So we just got engaged in June, and there are no dates set. And then the next question is, if we do, or when we do get married, what's that going to look like? Is that going to be a small family-only wedding, or is that going to be everybody we know? As you know, Erin knows a ton of people and in the business and elsewhere, and we're not sure what we want to do. So stay tuned on that one.
Well, knowing you, it is going to be a big affair. I saw your 25-year anniversary in black tuxedos, and it was amazing. That was amazing.
That was my 25th anniversary from my office, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Do you do a lot of YouTube? Are you a video guy?
Yeah, am I a video guy? We have a lot of YouTubes. We have hundreds of them. But am I a video guy? I mean, yes and no. A lot of it is from media that we have that's been done, and my various social media people film me a fair amount. So I guess I probably am in the big picture. I don't personally do it.
Right. I actually believe in the very near future, we're going to all have videographers on payroll, because that's where we're all heading now, especially now that everyone's getting more used to digital, because now everyone's forced online. Video is going to become more important than ever for your branding purposes, and just for patients to feel like they know you and are more comfortable with you before they actually meet you.
Well, yeah, and then also with podcasts.
Oh, for sure. So
I've been doing some different things on different podcasts and webinars for our Aesthetic Innovation Summit, that AIS that we've been doing right before the Aesthetic Society meeting. And I have had so much fun doing that, interviewing corporate titans and CEOs and such, that I went ahead and I actually have done a few of my early podcasts. I have a new podcast coming out called The Technology of Beauty. It's a term that I've popularized over the last 30 years, and I registered it and have written a number of things called The Technology of Beauty. So I went ahead and named my podcast The Technology of Beauty. And we'll be exploring all sorts of surgical and non-surgical, especially heavy and non-surgical ways to achieve more beauty.
Speaking of that, just out of curiosity, 100% of your practice, how much is non-surgical versus surgical percentage?
So there's different ways of measuring that. You can measure it in terms of the bodies that walk through the door, or you can measure it through the finances, the gross revenue. And there's some other ways you can also, time and square footage. And we do it all different ways. But I'll tell you, 2 years ago, we eclipsed the surgery. 51% of my revenue was non-surgical 2 years ago. And we're running at about 50-50 right now, surgical, non-surgical. Yet to do that, to generate that, of course, you have to see way more non-surgical patients to do that, right? So the time in the reception areas or walking through the front door, so those numbers have to be much higher for the non-surgical to achieve that sort of revenue stream for non-surgical.
Would you say you have to market more for non-surgical than surgical?
That's an interesting question. I don't know. That's an interesting question. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, because I mean, that's what I'm going to, when I consult with practices, I always look at the non-surgical and surgical, but then just like you, I also look at the time, the surgical involved, the hassle, the hassle factor, the marketing, like what it took to get that patient in the door. Just to be clear that it's not all just the revenues. There are many other factors that go into it. Anyway, that's for sure. So now, since none of us can travel anymore, because I'll probably never see you again, because it was great. I saw you at all the meetings. But what are we going to do now? Most of these meetings have been canceled. Has AIS also been canceled? It's been postponed. I don't like to use the word canceled. But it's been postponed because the Aesthetic Society has been postponed, but we just signed a contract today for the Aesthetic Society meeting in September. So the Aesthetic Society is still going to continue to have meetings, and the Aesthetic Innovation Summit will follow. And we might even follow a different meeting, but we haven't decided yet how we're going to do that. But we'll be traveling again, Catherine. We'll see each other. All right. Yeah, that would be great. I do want to circle back. I find this fascinating, your Orange Twist brand. You didn't tell me, but these are big retail centers you have in like 5 different states? Like that's
4 states. We have 15 centers right now, and we're in Sephora also. And we're going to be going into Saks Fifth Avenue. So
how do you go into Sephora? What does that look like?
It's a store within a store. So there's a very popular Sephora here at the Grove in LA. It's one of their landmarks, and we placed a store within a store. So we have a contract with Sephora. We have our own store within it. We don't compete with them in that we don't sell any skincare that would compete with the Sephora line, but we provide CoolSculpting and various other services, injectables such as fillers and modulators. All of them you can name. Clear and Brilliant, Ultherapy, Hydrofacial, of course, and IPLs, and various services there within the Sephora. But it's under the Orange Twist banner, so it's a separate area, store within a store. Kind of like what department stores do.
Yeah, but you need some room to do that.
No, we have it. If you come out, you'll see it. Or if you look at the grand opening, if you go back on my social media, I could find it or send it to you. We have about 1,500 feet probably up, and it's upstairs and towards the back in a separate area. But it's open, looking down on the Sephora store. It's lovely and very successful.
Do they help you at all?
Well, we help one another in that we market our store in Sephora, and they market Sephora, and so their traffic is curious about ours, and our traffic is curious about theirs. So it's a symbiotic relationship.
Very nice.
And our name's on the door. I mean, so it says Sephora, and then it says Orange Twist.
Huh. That's very forward thinking. And then, do you need a doctor to be there, or a nurse injector, or how does that work?
We don't need a doctor there. We certainly adhere to the Medical Board of California or whatever state we're within. We have medical directors. I'm the chief medical officer and co-founder along with Clint Carnell. But we have medical directors for each store, if you will. And we have licensed physician's assistants and nurse practitioners, and in some cases registered nurses, all of whom are trained to do whatever they are happening to do. And the cases are reviewed. And everything's done at a very high level of professionalism and quality.
Very nice. And do you see expanding that, or you're happy with where it's at right now?
Oh, no, I see expanding across the country. Yeah, we'd like to expand it and go into all the Sephoras, if you will. And I mentioned we're going to be going into Saks Fifth Avenue also.
Very nice. Well, Saks must be looking for some new ways to grow their awareness, and okay, that's very interesting. So anything else? Any last words about what to do now, or how to think right now?
Well, I think we should think positive, and we should plan, optimize everything we possibly can in preparation, and just stay as healthy as we can, follow the rules, stay with our loved ones, and get ready for a boom as soon as this is over.
Right.
That's my prediction.
Oh, good for you. I just love the way you think. How can people learn more about you?
Well, they could certainly follow me on Instagram at Dr. Grant Stevens. They could call me. They could email me. I'm available and take calls pretty much throughout. And I'm always interested in keeping up with my colleagues, and not just plastic surgeons. I have a lot of friends in the derm world and ENT, facial plastics, ophthalmic plastics, and other aesthetic medical fields. So I'm very interested in actually the overall comprehensive approach to this. So I'm core friendly.
That's great. And I will put the link to your website in our show notes, but it's marinaplasticsurgery.com.
Correct. Correct.
Marina Del Rey is a beautiful area. And when I say his backyard, it's just breathtaking. It's he's got views to die for. He's got the Pacific Ocean back there. It's a lovely place you live. I hope you wear your sunscreen. Yep.
I'm always wearing my Alastin sunscreen. I love the Alastin product line, and I love that sunscreen. I have it on right now.
That's so funny. When they came on board, Randy Waldman, well, his wife,
sure.
His wife, Marianne, I said, my God, your skin looks fantastic. And she said, wait. And she said, oh, that's Alastin skincare. And I went, oh my God. Now everybody I know is on Alastin. Yeah.
Yeah. Same here. I love it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Stevens. I really appreciate it. And I will see you again when the dust settles.
Good, Catherine. You take care. Be safe.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right, everybody. That's that. I hope you got a lot of value out of that. Please do me a favor and subscribe to Beauty and the Biz so this can reach more surgeons and we can help more people. And then if you want to give me a review, I would certainly appreciate that at iTunes. And then if you've got any comments about what Dr. Stevens or I said, or you have some feedback, please just leave me a note at my website, CatherineMaley.com, or you could always DM me at my Instagram account, which is Catherine Maley MBA. Thanks so much, and we'll talk again.
We hope you found valuable insight on this episode of Beauty and the Biz. For more episodes, tools, and Catherine's free book, visit www.catherinemaley.com. That's www.catherinemaley.com. And be sure to subscribe to get the latest practice building strategies delivered to you. And don't forget to share this Beauty and the Biz podcast with your staff and colleagues.